8 spine-chilling trucker horror stories revealed, disturbing encounters with sinister forces. Tom lived in a constant state of fatigue, his bloodshot eyes and weathered hands a testament to countless grueling hours on the road. The small town of Lilac Creek felt like a misnomer, its quiet streets housing unseen nightmares. One night, after an endless haul, he got the call that shattered his already frayed nerves. Sarah's voice trembled like leaves in a storm. "Tom, it's Jake, he's gone." Panic clawed at his chest. The local sheriff dismissed her frantic pleas, shuffling her off with a wave. Kids wander off, it happens. Dread sank deep inside him as he slammed the truck into gear, the engine roaring to life as he barreled down the dark and winding roads. Each mile felt like a descent into madness, shadows clinging to the edges like specters ready to claim him. The air thickened with an unspeakable tension, the chill creeping in through the cracked window. Silence pressed against him, heavy and suffocating. In a stretch devoid of lights, he saw him, a fellow truck driver known only as the Shadow. The man's face was obscured by dim headlights, but his stories cut through the gloom. "You hear those tales, buddy? Drivers just disappear round here. Flickering lights call luring off the path." Tom laughed nervously, a shell of disbelief shielding his mounting anxiety. But as he sped deeper into the night, flickers of movement danced in his peripheral vision, shadows weaving between trees. He turned the radio louder, desperate for normalcy, but it only drowned out the whispers that twisted through the air, warnings that felt almost alive. Why was nobody talking about the disappearances? Were the townspeople keeping secrets? He felt a creeping paranoia settle over him, as if the very night conspired against him. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent his heart pounding in a sickening rhythm. The faces of townsfolk he once trusted loomed large in his mind, their hollow smiles grotesque and terrifying, as if they were hiding something horrific behind those familiar masks. "Did you hear about the Miller boy?" he recalled one man saying at the diner. "Just wandered away, never came back." Tom shook off the memory, focusing on the road and the growing dread that clawed at him. The silence of the night was laced with anticipation, as if the universe held its breath, and he was the only one left to breathe. He could sense eyes in the woods, watching his every move, invisible predators waiting for their chance. It drove him further down the road, towards the unknown. "I need to get home," he yelled at the empty night, urgency tearing at him. But Lilac Creek was changing in his mind from a haven to a trap, a web spun from lies and dread. What truth lay buried beneath the town's quaint surface? As the headlights of an oncoming vehicle split the darkness ahead, he felt a jolt of fear coursing through him. It was all coming to a head, he could sense it. The walls of the familiar town were closing in, and he was spiraling towards a chilling revelation that would challenge everything he knew. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A sudden flash of light from the trees caught his eye, breaking the tension, a horrifying flicker that spoke of something otherworldly lurking. As he neared home, dread tightened into resolve. He had to choose whether to trust the whispers of the night or confront the chains binding his community in a darkness they refused to acknowledge. As he rolled into the driveway, the headlights illuminated a chilling scene. His small home, cloaked in shadows, was disturbingly quiet. Not a sound came from inside, yet something primal urged him to take action. He stood frozen for a moment at the threshold, the door creaking slightly open. What awaited him inside? Was Jake really gone, or was something more sinister at play, lurking and waiting, demanding a sacrifice? The darkness of Lilac Creek was alive, hungry, and Tom was about to uncover its terrifying heart. Tom stepped inside, the air thick and suffocating. The smell of dust hung heavy, settling like a shroud over everything. "Sarah?" His voice trembled, swallowed by the silence. He felt an unsettling emptiness, like an echo of something lost. With trembling hands, he flicked on a switch. The dim light flickered to life, casting harsh shadows across the walls. Pictures of his family adorned the surface, their smiles chained to memories he could hardly grasp in that moment. Where was Sarah? Where was Jake? His heart raced. As he moved deeper into the house, each creak of the floorboard seemed to amplify the quiet. The living room held its breath, furniture frozen in time. Goosebumps prickled his skin. Then he heard a faint rustle. It came from the kitchen. Instinct kicked in, adrenaline surged as he edged toward the source of the sound, every nerve ending alive with fear. He recalled the warnings, the way shadows danced around the town, luring people into their depths. "Sarah!" He called again, but his plea was met with only silence. In the kitchen, the shadows loomed larger. The faint sound of something scuttling deepened his foreboding. He steeled himself, pushing through the doorway, each step echoing like thunder in the stillness. He saw her hunched over at the table. Relief surged through him, only to be ripped away as he noticed the unnatural stillness surrounding her. "Sarah?" He reached out. She didn't respond, her head bowed, hair falling like curtains around her face. Unease swelled, choking him. "Are you all right?" He stepped closer, instinct urging him forward, but she remained motionless. The room felt colder, the light dimmer, as his breath quickened, its warmth dissipating into the freezing atmosphere. His hand shook as he gently touched her shoulder. "Sarah, please." Slowly, she turned. A smile split her face wide, but it wasn't her smile anymore. It twisted on her lips, unnatural and horrific. Her eyes were wide, hollow wells of despair reflecting something dreadful. "Tom," her voice came out low, almost a whisper, "I found him." His stomach dropped as dread washed over him. "What do you mean?" She pointed behind her, as if something stirred in the darkness. It was at that moment the kitchen light flickered again, and for a heartbeat, he thought he saw a figure in the shadows. A silhouette shifting, lurking, embodying the very fears he carried in his heart. "Jake?" Tom's voice cracked, barely escaping his throat. "Not Jake." Her smile twisted further, eyes darkening as the shadows deepened around them. The chill in the air turned into an icy grip around him, paralyzing in its grip. Gurgling noises emanated from behind her, low and guttural, growing louder like an approaching storm. The darkness began to draw closer, and it took everything in him not to scream. Tom stumbled backward, his mind racing, heart pounding like a drum, drowning in the fear that seeped into every pore of his being. He couldn't grasp what was happening. Reality twisted around him, leaving him gasping for understanding. "You said he was gone," he stammered, eyes darting, searching for an escape. A low laugh erupted from her throat, sharp and grating, it made his skin crawl. "He's never really gone, Tom." With a flash, the lights flickered out, dragging him into darkness. 1,000 eyes seemed to open around him, watching, waiting. There was no safety in solitude anymore. An inhuman growl rumbled in the back of his mind as he stumbled back, feeling something brush against his leg. Panic ignited within him, and then, the door slammed shut behind him, echoing like a gunshot in the void. "Tom," her voice echoed, taunted, the shadows creeping forward. His breath caught, face pale with fear. What had he stirred in Lilac Creek? As the darkness pressed closer, he felt helpless, heart racing, realization dawning that some doors, once opened, led to places best left untouched. What have I done? And with every flicker of failing lights, the answer whispered back, a voice that promised he would learn far too late. Was this the price of knowing? Or had he already signed a deal with the devil lurking in the depths of Lilac Creek? The air thickened as darkness enveloped Tom, pressing in on all sides. Shadows twisted like tendrils, reaching out, clawing at him with silent wails. His breath quickened, each inhale a desperate gasp, but the space around him felt like a vice, constricting, tightening its grip. Sarah! Panic surged. Was she still there? He could barely see her silhouette, the smile that once filled him with warmth now twisted into something sinister. Grabbing for the counter, his fingers brushed against something soft and damp pulsating. The feeling shot through him like ice water. Get away! He managed to choke out, stepping back with urgency. But there was no retreat. The kitchen was lost in shadows, walls closing in. Something heavy brushed against his leg again, a serpentine presence that seemed to slither past him out of the darkness. He shuddered, heart pounding, sweat trickling down his brow. The growling escalated, melding into a cacophony of whispers. It was as if dozens were conversing just behind the veil of light, taunting him, mocking his fear. He turned toward Sarah, shaking. "What did you find?" he demanded, more to ground himself than to gain clarity. With eerie calm, she lifted her finger, the deathly grin still stretching her lips. "They've been waiting for you." Her voice slid over him like a cold touch, wrapping him in a shroud of dread. From the corner, a figure emerged, slowly coalescing in the dim light. A face he recognized, sunken and hollow. Jake. But he wasn't the boy Tom remembered. This was something far darker, a hollow echo crafted from despair. Jake's eyes were dull, lifeless, and the laughter that escaped his lips was not joy, but derision that chilled Tom to the bone. "Tom." Jake's voice barely resembled his own. "You're just in time for the reunion." "No." The word fell from Tom's lips in disbelief. He stumbled toward the door behind him, hands trembling, but it wouldn't budge, slammed shut by an unseen force. He pounded against it, the sound lost in the oppressive hush. "Stay with us," Jake said, the shadows crawling toward him, eager to envelop him. "You can't leave again. Not now. Not ever." The sinister tone held a familiarity that made Tom tremble. It was the tone of old fears, the echo of nights spent trying to protect his family from the encroaching darkness. Panic ignited within him. "I need to get out." "You're not my son." "Not anymore." Sarah's voice morphed, layered with something monstrous. "You released us, Tom. The more you fight, the tighter the grip becomes." The shadows responded to her words, swirling, pulling away from the corners, backlit by an unholy glow. In the pit of his stomach, dread clawed at him. If he had unwittingly summoned this evil, how could he contain it? How could he face what he had awakened? Without thinking, he lunged to the side, hoping to race past Jake and Sarah, but something cold and clammy grabbed his arm, holding him firm. He screamed, but it was a feeble noise swallowed by the roar of laughter that filled the space around him. "Join us!" they chanted, voices overlapping an enveloping blanket of deception and despair. Tom felt the darkness seep into his skin, slick and oily, as they closed in. He gasped, overwhelmed with what he now understood. He was never supposed to return here. The house thrummed with life, malevolent, stirring as if about to consume him whole. Then he saw it. A flicker at the edge of the kitchen, an old window, just high enough. His heart quickened again, a flash of desperation igniting his soul. If he could reach it. But before he could make another move, the shadows lunged, a rush of cold engulfing him, and with a final scream of defiance, he was drawn into their depths, drowning in darkness. What lay beyond that void? Was escape a path to freedom or just another nightmare waiting to unfold? Tom felt himself falling, a plummet into an abyss where time lost all meaning. The whispers enveloped him, each a sharp needle pricking at the edges of his sanity. The cold seeped deeper into his bones, making his breath steam and hiss into the space around him. Was this what death felt like? Suddenly, he landed, more like crashing into a wall than finding solid ground. Stars twinkled overhead, a bizarre contrast to the hell he just escaped. But this wasn't a starry sky, it was a mosaic of those same dreadful eyes from the darkness, watching him with a mix of hunger and glee. He scrambled to his feet on a coarse, uneven surface, heart racing as he frantically searched for a way out. The ground shimmered a glimpse of a path winding through a forest of shadows, trees stretching impossibly high, their branches curling into grotesque claws. He took a step, then another, trying to shake the chilling feeling that 1,000 eyes were tracking his every move. Tom, a voice, familiar yet foreign, once again echoed around him. Jake's voice. You can't run. You want to escape. His legs buckled at the sound. He knew he had to keep moving but found himself grappling with the weight of dread. Each breath felt like a theft, stolen from the void that surrounded him. He pressed on, the path narrowing. Ahead, a flicker of light danced in the distance. Hope sparked in his chest even if he didn't understand where it would lead. He turned toward it, heart thumping out a desperate rhythm as he ran. The forest closed in around him, roots snatching at his ankles, like skeletal fingers trying to drag him back. With every step, whispers intertwined, voices he recognized mingling with those he didn't, friends long lost and dark echoes that clawed at his memories. You'll never leave us, Tom. Don't you see? We're one now. Panic clawed at his throat, a scream trapped in his chest. What did they mean? Just as he could make out the light's shape, it flared bright, casting the shadowy forest into sharp relief. Figures began to materialize, phantoms of his past standing resolute before him. They wore twisted, grief-stricken expressions, reflections of the torment that weighed heavily on him. Why did you come back? One of them pleaded, their voice tinged with sorrow. It was a face he recognized from the summer before everything fell apart. I had to. Tom paused, unsure of his own words, unsure of anything. I thought I could help. I thought I could change things. They exchanged glances that hinted at something deeper, something he had not confronted. An unsettling realization dawned, this wasn't merely a haunting. They were tied to him, stitched into the fabric of his life and horrifying choices. Help us. Jake materialized behind them, his hollow eyes now glowing with the same malevolence that had surrounded Tom before. You're the one who brought us here. Only you can set us free. With those words, the figures began to unravel, their forms dissolving into mist and fear. Frantically, Tom could feel the fabric around him twitching, the ground quaking beneath his feet. The forest seemed alive, pulsating with dark energy. Stop. No. I want tea. He turned to run away from their pleading, from the darkness that threatened to swallow him into this nightmare forever. Time warped, bringing the past rushing forward like a tidal wave. As he stumbled into the blinding light, something gripped his ankle, and he was sent tumbling face first into the ground. Dread washed over him. What did he have to pay for this taste of freedom? Around him, shadows surged, clawing up his legs. The echo of anguished laughter filled the air, mingling with the wails of lost souls. He was trapped, caught in a web spun from fear and regret, every thread pulling tighter. Tom closed his eyes, bracing for the end, but then silence. What if this silence was just a prelude to something worse? What waited behind that stillness? That stark contrast became his only reality as he processed the aftermath of his choices. But still, a question lingered in the depths of his mind: if he faced this darkness, would he find a way to save them, or would he unravel completely? The looming shadows shifted, whispering promises of despair. The tension built, urging him to open his eyes once more, to seek the truth hidden in the void. What horror might embrace him next? Tom opened his eyes slowly, heart pounding against his ribs, each beat echoing like a drum in the dense silence. The ground beneath him throbbed with a life of its own, pulsing as though it were breathing a macabre rhythm of despair. Shadows curled around him, forming twisted shapes. He could just make out the grotesque features of faces within them. Were they watching, waiting? The silence shattered with a sudden wail, a sound both familiar and unknown. It cut through the stillness, raising the hair on the back of his neck. He whipped his head around, searching for the source. His breath quickened, and adrenaline surged. In every corner of this dark realm, he felt the weight of judgment, it was as if the very ground was conducting a trial, and he was the condemned. The light had flickered out. The path that had seemed so hopeful was now lost in a thick fog. Tom stood alone, fighting back panic. "What do you want from me?" he cried into the void. The air felt charged, vibrating with anticipation. He hoped against hope that the shadows would merely remain silent, but they spiraled closer, drawn to his defiance. "Tom." The whisper slithered through the air, wrapping around him like a noose. Jake's voice again. "You're only prolonging the inevitable. Come to us." He shook his head, backpedaling, each step feeling heavier as if the shadows themselves tugged against him. A fleeting memory flickered, running, screaming, the smell of smoke seasoned with guilt. "No. I won't do this," he shouted, defiance rising in his throat. "I'm not yours to claim." The shadows lunged, and suddenly, he was swept off his feet, crashing into a mound of darkness. The cold was suffocating, wrapping around him, urging him to give in. With every twist and turn, the ground morphed, roots, vines, and grim faces intertwining, an unholy grip determined to drag him under. He clawed at the earth, heart racing, terror consuming him. "Help me!" he screamed, the sound swallowed by the encroaching dark. The world spun as sweat mixed with the dirt on his brow. The laughter echoed wildly around him, familiar yet cruel. He closed his eyes, forcing the memories away, but they clawed back, relentless, and then it happened, vision pierced by blinding light. Tom jerked up, hands flying to shield his eyes, blinding brightness dissolving the shadows. "You think you can escape?" The voice came clearer, malevolent yet smooth, wrapping around him like a well-placed trap. "You're just fighting the current." Unsteady, he stumbled up, light pouring through the spaces between his fingers. There it was again, hope flickering in his chest, a chance to break free. But the whispers came back like a flood, their promises of despair now sharpened like broken glass. Stay with us. You have no place in the land of the living anymore, you don't know me," he yelled, resolving to break free from the grip of the past that was clawing back at him. He dashed toward the light, ignoring the shadows that howled around him. Each step grew heavier, like lead, with every ounce of willpower, every ounce of doubt swirling inside his chest. The faint outline ahead coalesced into a figure, a blurry silhouette he couldn't quite make out. "Help," he panted. But with every ounce of his desire for escape, the figure melted away, leaving him alone once more, the darkness swirling with renewed vigor, and just like that, Tom felt another grip, a chill washing over him that wasn't just fear, but pure malice. They were not finished yet. As he raced onward, the chilling urge to look back tugged at him, bringing with it the fear of what stood just behind him, his greatest fears manifesting into darkness. Suddenly, the ground split open, a gaping maw filled with shadows. Tom staggered back, heart dropping like a stone. What awaited him in the depths below? Would he be consumed, or was there a chance of redemption buried somewhere within the darkness? He took a deep breath, teetering on the edge, before launching himself forward into the unknown. Would he find the answers, or would he plunge deeper into despair? The world swirled as Tom fell into the abyss, a rush of icy shadows engulfing him. Instinctively, he kicked out, desperate to find something solid to hold on to, but the darkness rushed around him like a freezing wind. It was a nightmarish descent, a twisted tapestry of despair that threatened to swallow him whole. He slammed into something hard, pain radiating through his body. With a grunt, he pushed himself up, gasping for breath in the cloying darkness. It felt damp and alive, earthen walls closing in, as if the very ground had a pulse, a throaty rumble resonating beneath him. Lurching forward, he stumbled through this dismal maze, each step feeling like a challenge against the will of the shadows. Muffled laughter skittered around him, seeping into his mind like poison. "You thought you could escape?" The chilling voice repeated the words, twisting and echoing in every corner of his brain. He felt the shadows close in, their grasp tightening around him like a serpentine coil. Names rang in his ears: Jake, Mara, Lucy. They danced in his thoughts like mocking specters. Memories of their faces flitted past, accusing him, urging him to embrace the inevitable. "No!" he hissed, pressing a hand to the unyielding wall of darkness, feeling the cool, slick earth beneath his fingertips. It was too familiar, too suffocating. It reminded him of his past failures, the people he had let down, those who had depended on him. Where were they now? Just beyond the veil, shadows lost, ahead, a pinprick of light flickered. It pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing him in like a moth to flame. With renewed determination, he lurched toward it, fighting against the stitching tendrils of darkness that sought to bind him to their will. The laughter persisted, a mocking chorus. "Futile, just give in," they sang, voices entwined with the desperate shuffling of anxious feet. He could feel them, the shadows were hungry. Gobbling up his resolve, growing stronger with every ounce of fear he dispensed, finally reaching the light, Tom thrust his hands towards it. The moment his fingers brushed against the glowing orb, pain seared through him like a lightning strike, illuminating the darkness with fragments of searing white light. The laughter dropped abruptly, silence cutting in like a knife. "Tom," a gentle voice whispered, softer than the rest, threading through the remaining echoes of laughter. "You have to choose." He stumbled back, the glow reflected in his wide eyes. It rippled with colors, swirling hues of anguish and hope mixed in a flickering dance. Ghostly figures began to form behind the light, their faces etched with sorrow and longing, the faces he had let slip away. "What do you mean?" he gasped, heart hammering. "Choose what? Stay with us or return." The ghostly figures gestured, their movements slack and fluid, like water spilling over rocks. "Your path is barbed with despair, threaded with choices." Tom's heart clawed within his chest. I can't stay here. I need to save them." He tried to step back toward the darkness, but the light pulled him, a conflicting urge tugging at every fiber of his being, but then he noticed the ground beneath his feet shifting, restless, thrumming with an urgency. The soft flicker of the light barely contained the shadows at bay, but he could feel them rising. The choice loomed over him, heavy, a decision that might shatter them all or grant him a glimpse of salvation. "Choose wisely," echoed the voice, a warning threading itself through the air. Shadows writhed, whispering promises woven from darkened hope and bitter anguish. As he teetered between the light and an impending darkness, what would Tom decide? Would he risk everything to save the faces in the light, or surrender to the inevitability surrounding him? The choice hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Would salvation or despair claim him? The shadows rushed closer, howling with anticipation, relishing the uncertainty, the darkness hungry for a decision. Desperation gripped his heart as he prepared to take a leap into the unknown once again. Would it lead him finally to a door of horrors, or to a light of redemption? More importantly, could he face whatever he might find waiting there? Tom took a breath, a mix of fear and determination raging within him. His heart raced as he teetered between the warm glow of the spectral light and the hungry shadows creeping ever closer. "I have to save them," he whispered, mostly to himself. But part of him felt drawn to the faces in the light. The sorrow etched deep in their eyes told stories he was too scared to confront. Suddenly, the ground beneath him shifted violently, sending shockwaves through his legs. Panic surged as the walls seemed to pulse and breathe, a living entity with a malevolent heart. The choice pressed down on him, a weight that threatened to crush him completely. "Choose," the gentle voice beckoned again, more insistent this time, wrapping around him like a serpentine vine. He thought of the shadows flanking him, the whispers promising release, freedom from the pain of his past failures. But their seductive pull felt wrong, twisted. He surged forward, reaching for the light again. The colors swirled violently, casting eerie shadows that danced with a maniacal glee. Every fiber of his being screamed at him, pushing him towards the ethereal figures that were his long-lost friends. He could almost hear their echoes, inviting but filled with a pain that parried against hope. "I'm coming!" he shouted, the words tearing from his throat with all the power he could muster. But even as he took a step toward them, darkness wrapped around his ankles like icy chains, trying to drag him back. "You can't save them, Tom." The mocking laughter returned, sharp and taunting. They're gone. You're the only one left. No. He screamed, the last vestiges of his courage shining through the dark. He could feel their eyes on him, pleading, pulling him closer. Abruptly, the shadows trembled, recoiling as he fought against their grasp. No matter how much the darkness tempted him to surrender, he couldn't let go, not now. With one final, desperate lunge, Tom reached out, fingers stretching toward the light. As he did, a cold grip latched onto his wrist, icy and constricting. Heart pounding in his chest, he felt the warmth of the spectral figures brush against his skin, pulling him toward redemption, yet the shadows fought back with a desperate ferocity. "Stay with us!" shrieked a haunting voice, a blend of Jake, Mara, and Lucy, all pleading with him. "Let them go!" Tom shouted, wrenching his wrist free from the icy clutch. He swung his fist down, an instinctual reaction fueled by desperation and the fading glimmers of hope. His hand connected with something solid in the dark, and warmth flooded his senses. The light exploded around him, white-hot energy engulfed him, and the darkness howled, a furious cacophony that rattled the very earth beneath his feet. With a final push of will, he dove into the light, breaching the threshold of darkness, yet as he flung himself toward hope, he felt the cold whispers rise around him, clawing at his back, wrenching harder than ever to return him to despair. "Tom!" The gentle voice broke through the chaos, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. It felt close, so close. But just as quickly as it came, it began to dissipate, flickering like dying embers. And then came the stillness. As the brightness enveloped him, the cries of his friends danced at the periphery of his vision like shadows refusing to yield. For a moment, he felt weightless, suspended above the clutches of despair. But something was wrong. The light dimmed, and he found himself standing alone. The ground beneath him was a twisted reflection of what he had left behind. Where were the faces of his friends? Where was the comfort of their presence? Panic gripped him. In the darkness, a faint echo reached him, hollow and hollowing. "You chose, Tom," it said, leaving him chilled to the bone. "But can you bear the cost?" The shadows began to shift again, their forms crystallizing into dark silhouettes as they lingered on the edges of his vision, growing more distinct. "Tom," they whispered, a cacophony of voices merging into one. "Do you really think it's over?" A shiver ran down his spine as the realization hit him. The shadows weren't retreating, they were preparing for something else. What had he really chosen? And more importantly, what was waiting for him in this new abyss? The ground shifted again beneath Tom, but this time it felt like a warning, a sinister beat of a drum thrumming in sync with his racing heart. The silhouettes surrounding him writhed with anticipation, their forms twisting and coiling like black smoke, each whisper echoing louder, filling his mind with dread. "Do you feel it, Tom?" One voice hissed, slicing through the thick air. "The darkness is hungry, it wants to taste your fear." He stumbled, instincts kicking in as the shadows clawed closer, dragging their ethereal fingers across the surface of his thoughts. Despair lay heavy in the air, making it hard to breathe, each inhale a struggle against the suffocating uncertainty. "Get away!" Tom shouted, his voice shaky, but the desperation propelled him to retreat, feet shuffling back toward the fading light that had initially promised salvation. Yet the vibrant glow now seemed like a distant memory, dim and fading like a dream slipping away upon waking. Why run? The shadows danced, taunting him, their laughter like breaking glass, echoing around him. "You're one of us now." His mind raced. One of them? It felt impossible, yet fear warped his perception. He could sense their thoughts, taste their despair, a bitter echo of his own. "No." The word burst from him, a raw reflex. "I want to let you take me." With renewed determination, he pressed forward, willing the remnants of warmth from the flickering light to guide him. But every step back felt heavier, the shadows pressing in, pushing against him like a living wall of dread. "Tom," came another whisper, this one softer, almost pleading. It chilled him to the bone. "Remember us. We came for you. Images flashed through his mind, laughter, moments shared, the warmth of friendship before the shadows had claimed them. The faces of Jake, Mara, and Lucy loomed before him half hidden in mist, their eyes pleading for release but marred with torment. Do you see them? The darkness cooed, its breath a cold shudder against his neck. They're eternally bound to you. Their suffering is your burden, not theirs alone. Tom paused, uncertainty blooming in his chest. The thought of being tethered to their pain filled him with despair. Could he truly cast it aside? They wouldn't want this, he shot back defiantly. The shadows writhed, forming a mass that pulsated with anger. Then why do you linger? Why not join them? Suddenly, understanding dawned. The cost of his choice was not to save or abandon but to confront. He had traded his fears for freedom, yet the threads binding him to his friends remained intact. Armed with newfound clarity, Tom squared his shoulders. I will not be your pawn anymore. With each word, determination surged inside him. He pulled from the depths of memory, feelings of joy intertwined with pain, and poured it into the light that had brought him here. The warmth ignited, rekindled by the strength of connection. Listen to me. He yelled into the void. I choose to remember them for who they were, not how they died. The ground rumbled violently as a fracture spread through the dark landscape around him. Shadows screeched, their forms disintegrating into spools of black mist, swirling chaotically. Stop! They cried as he pressed forward, moving toward the light that dimmed around the edges but flared up fiercely in the center. You'll regret this, Tom. His heart pounding, he felt a surge of hope as he lunged into the light. But just as he thought escape was near, a scream tore through the air, a voice he recognized. Tom! Don't leave us! In that split second, he hesitated, glancing back at the swirling abyss. To slip away now would mean abandoning them entirely, sealing their fate in darkness, and in the radiant glow, more faces flickered into view, their expressions merging into a mask of fear and desperation. What choice would he make now? Could he save them, or had he already signed his own death warrant by waiting too long? Tom! Echoed again, but this time it felt different, more like a warning. As shadows began to envelop him again, he had to decide. Could he escape without sacrificing his friends? Or would he risk it all to pull them back from the edge? The path ahead twisted and darkened, leaving him at an impasse. Time was running out. The light pulsated around Tom, an alluring heartbeat in the cruel world drowning in shadows. He could hardly think straight, the voices clawing at his mind, whispering twisted truths. Each moment felt suspended, tinged with a dreadful haze that blurred time. What would be left of him if he turned back? Choose. The shadows screeched, and the sound sliced through the air like an open wound. Leave us or join us. Panic surged in Tom's heart, a tidal wave crashing over him, tugging him toward the darkness that loomed like an endless void. He whimpered involuntarily, the thought of abandoning his friends hanging like a noose around his neck. But then he saw their faces again, flickering with urgency. Mara's eyes shone with courage, her smile a beacon of hope. Don't give up, Tom. Fight for us, fight for yourself. He could feel their fear mingling with his own, each gasp an echo in the suffocating void. Sorrow sank deep into his gut. He could either be devoured by despair or find a way to weave their spirits back together. His fingers trembled as he reached out to the light, grasping at the warmth that promised solace but throbbed with desperate need. Help us! Came the voices, a chorus of despair crashing against him. You have to help us. Tom's mind reeled as the shadows coiled tighter, a living blanket of dread, smothering hope in its grasp. Did they even want to be saved? What if their tethering to the darkness was a choice? He turned on his heel, adrenaline igniting his limbs. No! I won't abandon you! He shouted, fingers stretched toward the flickering warmth. I will bring you back. But just as he stepped forward, the ground trembled harshly. The earth split beneath him, revealing a chasm of swirling darkness that beckoned with sinister promises. Fool! The shadows hissed, their grip tightening like a vice around his chest. You'll only make this worse. He stumbled back, teetering at the edge. Hushed whispers spiraled through the void, each word a chilling caress against his skin. Join us, Tom. Accept the darkness within. It will be easier that way. Tom felt it then, that pull. A comforting embrace, wrapping around him like the love of a long-lost friend. It was seductive. The urge to let go of the fight flickered like a dying ember. What's the point? The darkness breathed softly in his ear. You can never win. They're trapped. Just like you. You belong with us. No. He roared, heart racing. I belong to the light. I want to let fear take root in me. With a mighty heave, Tom lunged forward into the radiance, a desperate act of defiance. As his hand met the warmth, a blinding wave surged through him. He felt the terrifying pleasure of connection. The darkness shrieked, a violent reaction that reverberated through the air. Shadows spiraled like a tempest, wild and furious, as Tom's resolve ignited into a firestorm. You are not my chains. But with that defiance came a price. The screams of his friends enveloped him, echoing in twisted agony. He felt their despair and the weight of his decision tighten around him like a noose. Then came a moment of silence, a stillness that felt like a grave mistake. Tom's heart quaked as he realized he was not alone in the light. Behind him, a figure emerged from the darkness, a shadow wraith wearing the familiar face of Jake. Its hollow smile sent chills scuttling down Tom's spine. You think you can save us? Join me, Tom, it's easier this way. Tom's breath caught, the world tilting dangerously. Could Jake really be lost? Would embracing this dark truth mean surrendering everything? No, I won T. He cried, grappling with the visceral tide. Then you'll lose them forever. Jake's voice warped into monstrous laughter as the darkness pooled around Tom, waiting to engulf him whole. Tom stood frozen, wrestling with his choices. Would he have to make the ultimate sacrifice? As the shadows howled and the light flickered ominously, time was slipping away fast. What cold betrayal awaited him if he chose this path? Or was embracing the darkness the only way to pull his friends from its grasp? His heart pounded fiercely, echoing the choice he was about to make. Tom's heart raced as he stared into Jake's hollow eyes, those eyes that spoke of vulnerability now cloaked in malevolence. Everything inside him screamed to be strong, to push back against the darkness that threatened to envelop him. I won't give in, he yelled, voice breaking, resonating against the shadows swarming around him. But the darkness pulsed, whispering sweet promises of salvation intertwined with despair. Join us, Tom. Let go of the fight. Embrace the inevitable. The shadows coiled like vipers, tightening their grip. Panic consumed him, twisting his insides into knots of desperation. No, no, no. With every ounce of defiance left in him, Tom pushed forward, reaching for the light that flickered, casting long shadows. You can take the form of the pain, but you cannot take my will. I am more than my past. He felt the warmth of that spectral glow brush against his fingertips like a gentle breeze. The memory of laughter, friendship, warmth surged into his heart, overpowering the chill of despair. It was a reminder that hope still existed, even in the depths of sorrow. Remember us. Echoed a haunting chorus from the shadows, both a plea and a threat. But there was no backing down. He thought of Mara and Lucy, their faces alive in his mind, their smiles blooming amid the chaos as he grasped at the warmth, pulling it toward him. The chorus of shadows grew fierce. You'll never win. You'll only lose them. But the shrieks of memory fueled his resolve. I refuse to abandon you. Tom bellowed, feeling the light shudder with life, trembling against the black tendrils that loomed around him. In that moment, everything shifted. The darkness faltered, reeling as if struck by an unseen force. He lunged into the blinding light, feeling warmth wash over him, spreading like wildfire through icebound veins. The shadows howled in outrage, a cacophony of despair that ricocheted against the walls of his mind, echoing memories of loss. Tom! Jake's voice morphed into a monstrous growl, the pain in his eyes replaced with fury. You're weak. Embrace the darkness. With a surge of courage, Tom shouted back, No. You're wrong. I choose to remember the love, not the fear. He felt a warmth envelop him, a golden light wrapping around him like a protective cocoon, igniting his every nerve. Fight, Tom. We're with you. Whispered a dozen voices in unison, a stream of memories swimming in the pool of his consciousness, the faces of those he had lost slowly materializing behind the veil of darkness. There they were, Jake, Mara, Lucy, and all the others he had failed to save. Each face held tight to hope, smiling yet shadowed, eyes urging him to keep moving. No. Don't take them. Not now. He screamed, pushing past the encroaching shadows, his heart swelling. He could feel their spirits dancing against the suffocating darkness, whispering encouragement. Tom forced his way forward, his pulse racing, galvanizing him into action as the shadows swirled, desperate to cling to him. With all his strength, he reached out, merging with the light, enveloping it around him and holding fast. The brilliance flared brighter, illuminating the darkened reality before him. He could feel every sorrow washed away with each heartbeat, transforming anguish into serenity. The shadows shrieked in fury, recoiling against the light, their forms dissolving into the tendrils of night that had once trapped him. This doesn't end here. You will pay for your defiance. Ignoring their cries, Tom moved deeper into the light, feeling the weight of his friends around him no longer confined by shadows but instead filled with warmth and belonging. He centered his focus, calling upon the memories. We will find peace together. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath him as the abyss split wide open, releasing a horrific cry, a final gasp as the shadows retreated toward their dark realm. He seized the moment, racing toward the warmth calling to him. In that instant, he felt a surge of love, a deafening roar of encouragement, and suddenly he wasn't alone anymore. He could see them, his friends, broken yet beautiful, free from the darkness that once bound them. They stood in the light, reaching out with open arms, laughter echoing, weaving a tapestry of connection that pulled them all back together. Tom, we're back! Mara exclaimed, and Jake's eyes sparkled with life once more, no longer hollow. It was a moment suspended in time. He had chosen love over fear, connection over despair. With heart racing, they stepped toward the light, arms interlocked. Understanding washed over him like a summer rain. They were no longer victims of darkness, they were warriors of light, free to embrace hope once more, and as the shadows scattered like dust in the wind, Tom led his friends out into the dawn, fully aware of the strength of their bond. Lilac Creek no longer felt like a prison. It transformed into a sanctuary, an unbreakable reminder that the power to choose could fracture evil and illuminate souls. Tom took a deep breath, his heart soaring. He turned, glancing back at the fading darkness, acknowledging the struggle but welcoming the beauty of life that awaited. Together, always together, he whispered as the sun burst through the horizon, each ray illuminating their path home, let this be a lesson for you all. If you've made it this far and want to see how our journey unfolds, you need to subscribe immediately. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the significance of your support, so let us spread these thrilling tales far and wide.